Every year from the 25th of November to the 10th of December, the world marks the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This year marks 30 years since the iconic Beijing conference, where women around the world came together to fight for their liberation, dignity, and safety. Here at Legally Clueless, we've teamed up with UN Women to spotlight African changemakers from across the continent and across generations who are doing their part to end gender-based and sexual violence. And in this episode, we meet Viola Cheptoo, an international athletic star using her platform to end gender-based and sexual violence.
Hii kuanzia November 25th mpaka December 10 ni a window of 16 days ya activism against gender-based violence. Sasa hiyo ndio tunazungumzia. Jana tulikuwa Iten, tuliongelesha wakimbiaji, tulikuwa na wamama, tulikuwa na watoto. Tuliongea tu the same message tutaongea leo. Ndio sisi wote by the time hii 16 day period ikiisha, kila mtu anaelewa gender-based violence ni nini.
My name is Viola Cheptoo. I am a professional athlete. I run marathon. I was second in New York Marathon in 2021. I've also represented Kenya in track and field in 2015 during World Championships in Beijing and also during the Olympic Games in Rio. I am also the founder and the chairperson of Tirop Angels, an organization that myself and other of my friends and the family of Agnes started after Agnes's murder. So I started getting interested in athletics at a very young age. So I come from a family of runners. My parents tells me that my grandparents from my maternal side were runners. They loved running, but then back then there were no organized athletics or any competition. So my grandmother loved running. My parents also ran, but they were not into competitive running back then. And so my siblings as well are athletes. So at a very young age, I would watch my siblings running on TV, especially my brother Bernard Lagat, and I really got interested because I also wanted to be on the TV because that was something that I thought it was really cool. And back then in the village, we only had one TV in the village. So for me to be able to go to my village, to my neighbor and watch my brother run on TV, I thought that was really cool. So at a very young age, I started running after school in the evenings. I would just run around our farm and then come back home, shower, and help mom cooking. But then when I got to high school, I actually stopped running because of bullying. Yeah, because I was always this skinny. And so that played in my head for quite some time until when I was in Form 3 is when I transferred to another school. And in that school, I was embraced. I became the captain for basketball. And that's where I just parted ways with running completely. But then again, after high school, my brother told me, okay, if you want to come to the US to study just like my other siblings, you need to start running so that you can get scholarship. And that's how now I started training after high school. And then I got a scholarship and went to the US. And that's where I ran in college. And in college, by the way, I don't want to say this, but I became the celebrity of the school because I was running faster than all the kids without having any background in running, especially from high school in Kenya. So that really made me feel accepted and I fell back in love with running. And after running in college, I graduated in 2012 from Florida State University. And then I transitioned into professional running in 2013 where I got a sponsorship with Adidas. And the rest is history. I've just been running since then. So for my first professional running in 2013 after graduating from college, I ran an indoor race in Boston, which is a track of 200 meters. And in that race, we had these fast athletes from Ethiopia and Americans. And I was third out of college. And I was like, wow, okay, so I guess I belong here. I did not have an agent then. So my coach spoke to her former agent. And he's like, okay, if she's able to run 4:05, then I'll think about getting her a contract. Or by the end of the season, I'll be able to get her a contract if she runs 8:50 in 3,000 meters, which at the end of the season, we had a race in Rieti, Italy. So I went to Prague and I ran 1,500 and I ran 4:05. And my agent was like, okay, this is actually happening. Let's see what she can do at the end of the season. So in September, and that was one of the races that I actually met Agnes. And she was running barefoot. She was still young. She had her hair shaved. And we warmed up together in a warm-up area. And I just kept asking her if she had shoes, and she said yes. She was so shy. And so we ran together, and I actually ended up running 8:50, and my agent had told me, if you can run 8:52, you'll get a contract. So I had a target already. So I went there and I ran 8:50, and I was able to get my contract, and that was just the highlight of my, to begin my career. So that it was really cool. So my friendship with Agnes progressed when I came back to Kenya. So I went back to the US in 2013 and 2014, and then came back to try for World Championship, and I made the Kenyan team. And at that point, I was now getting to know my Kenyan friends who are in the running field as well. But then after the Olympics in 2016 is when I went back to Iten, and I said, I want to train like my fellow Kenyans. I'm not going back to the US because I feel that there's something about training in Kenya that would advance my career. So I went to Iten, and that's where I met Agnes now permanently, where we would be training together under the same coach at end of 2016, 2017. And then 2018, for some reason, I was told she was injured and I wasn't able to reach her. So I was like, okay, it's normal for all of us. When you're injured, you don't want anything to do with athletics because it makes you feel even more depressed because you are not doing what you love the most. So I felt that, okay, I was giving her space. So I went and ran my first half marathon in February of 2020 before COVID started. And then now I went back to the US, and we did not get to see each other. The second time that I saw Agnes was during trials for the Olympics in Kenya. And then when she made the Olympic team, we were cheering for her. We were really celebrating her coming so close to her being in the podium. And then before the end of that season, Adidas usually hosts athletes who are sponsored by Adidas to go to Germany to run an Adidas sponsored event on campus. So I was running the half marathon and Agnes was running the 10,000. After I ran the half marathon, I was able to go and watch Agnes, and it was amazing to just watch her just kill the whole team, the whole group of Ethiopian athletes, Kenyan athletes, and she was running so fast. And when she broke the world record, it was surreal to us.
The world record, which has stood for 19 years at 30:29, is going to be smashed. Agnes Tirop takes the win and the world record, 30:01, 30:02, the winning time.
So usually when we go to Germany, we usually go there to launch a new shoe that is going to be released by Adidas. So it's almost like we are doing a test of the shoes that are being released before it gets to the market. So when we got there, she said, no, I don't want new shoes. I just want this other shoe that was released last year. I'm not going to run on a new shoe. So they negotiated with one of the bosses from Adidas, and she was told, only if you break the world record, if you promise to break the world record, we are going to have you run with this shoe. She said, I promise, and you will see it. So she went and broke the world record, and it was crazy for everyone because this was a shoe that was not advanced like what everyone else had. So it was really nice to watch her break the world record. She was so happy. I've never seen her come alive because she was always reserved. But during this event, she was just becoming her true self, who she should be. And knowing what I know now is that she had been sheltered and, put down for quite a long time, but she was rising back and just becoming her true self. Before I went back to US, I did not understand what gender-based violence is. And that is because back home, violence was an everyday thing. At home, at our neighbors' homes. So it did not seem that there was anything different. And we grew up like that. And I think also that played a role in me not realizing if Agnes was going through anything. It's because I did not have the knowledge to read and understand that she was going through anything. Even when it comes to training, she would come, her partner would follow her alongside with the car. Whenever she's done with training, she would get in the car and I don't see her until the following day. I traveled back with Agnes after the race where she broke the world record in Germany. And we parted ways at the airport, we gave her a hug. So the following day, I think a few days later, I went back to my village to run some errands with my mom. And when I was actually at the chief's office, and somebody sent me a text and said, hey, Viola, what's happening with Agnes? To me, I was like, what's happening with Agnes? Nothing is happening to Agnes. And he's like, okay, let me just send you a picture and then you tell me what is happening with Agnes. And I said, okay, you send it to me. And so I looked at the picture. It's her holding the flag after the Olympics. And still, I could not even read what was on the picture, what was written there. So for me, I just looked at the picture and I was like, hey, you didn't know Agnes just broke the world record the other day? That's the picture when she was running around with the Kenyan flag. And he's like, no, read what is on that. And I was like, okay. So I hung up and I went back and read. And I froze. I thought it was the biggest joke of all time. And I called him back and I said, no, this is not true. Is she missing? What is... I'm still not processing the post. And he's like, no, Viola, actually, she's been found stabbed. And I said, no. Who could have done that to Agnes? Because she's the nicest person. She never argues with anyone. She has no enemies. There is no way that could happen to her. And he's like, yeah, I know, I feel bad, but maybe you can call your friends in Iten. So I started calling everybody. I was calling my nephew, he's in Iten. I was calling friends, and everybody's like, yeah, Viola, it's so sad. This has really happened. The police has taped around her house. So we are waiting to see if there's anything. Because at this point, they're saying she's missing. Some people are saying she's deceased. We are about to find out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to leave home. Just let me know, keep me updated. So I left. And then my nephew called me back and said, yeah, auntie, it's true. The police are here. They're actually taking her away. And yeah, it was sad. Yeah. Yeah. It was sad.
We're happy for you. You're smiling. The sun is shining. And we've seen a new world record. Ladies and gentlemen, world record holder, Agnes Tirop.
I think for me it was hard to process that at 25 years old, Agnes had broken the world record, let's say 2 weeks before that. And a few days later, her body was being carried away from her house. She's not leaving to go for a run. So that was something that I had trouble processing, and especially understanding who could do that to her. And I didn't even have any suspicions on who, because I had never met the guy. I didn't know him personally. To me, I could not understand why. Yeah. I think the community, and I think the country at large, were shocked at the beginning, but then everybody came to a realization that it's a bigger problem, because if it really happened to Agnes, you see where I come from, violence was an everyday thing growing up. And it was, to me, what I related violence to was poverty. We did not have much. And there were reasons for my parents to fight because there were no food, or kids could not go to school. There was a lot of stress. And when it happened to Agnes, I think a lot of people could not understand how somebody who is a world record holder, somebody with a good paying job, because athletics is a very good paying job, someone who has a big name like Agnes could die because of gender-based violence. And a lot of people, I think, did not put the two together. A celebrity dying from GBV, and anybody else from the village going through the same. I think a lot of people could not put the two together. But then I was really pleased with how athletes and the community came together for the first time. I think that was for the first time, to find out that do we really have a big problem here, or is it just a one-time thing? Athletes started coming out. And it was really beautiful to see everybody come together for the sake of Agnes, but then that also got us to where we are now, where we have the president of our country talking about gender-based violence. From 2021 to 2024, her mother sparked a conversation. And that is something that I guess I can walk away feeling that, okay, if she had to die for other people to be saved. Her parents have said the same thing. And that's why they were okay with us having her name being used in an organization to save other people. Then I guess we will use her name and her legacy to continue to save other women and make sure that we eradicate gender-based violence. We still struggle with her death, but at least we have found purpose also to save other women and girls. Tirop Angels actually came as just a way of just us speaking out and just condemning what happened to Agnes. And at church, during the church service, for some reason, I was one of the people who were told to speak on behalf of the female athletes because it was too emotional. Nobody had the strength to speak. But for some reason, I don't know where I got the strength from. I think it was Agnes telling me to stand and speak so that something could happen after that.
Today I'm here because of one issue. This gender-based violence issue. I'm standing here because something has to be done. And it has to be done now. Not tomorrow. Not any other day. It has to start today. As women, we have people that we have elected to represent us in the parliament, in the society that we look up to. In the name of women representatives, where are you? Women representatives, if you're not going to do anything for me, for my sister, for my mother, and the generation to come, please go home.
I just walked on stage and I felt the strength. I felt the pain. I felt the words of Agnes just telling me to call out for more people. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to just be silent. I'm just going to call out everybody, including the president. I don't care. We need solutions to this. Agnes shouldn't be dead. And number two, we need an arrest. And then after that, people are like, wow, Viola, you can help a lot of athletes. You have a voice. And so I went back to her family a few days later to check on them. And then I told them, like I promised during the day before her funeral, we are going to do something and I would need your help because you are the number one people who are going to help me get the strength to go out there because now I have your blessings. And the parents are like, we will do that. So I told them, I'll go to New York. I'll give you the 40 days. And then when I come back, we will have a sit and we'll organize how we are starting an organization. But then it spiraled very quickly because now we went to churches, we went to camps, we go to schools. And then within a very short time, Adidas were coming to Kenya to do shoe testing with the Adidas athletes. And one of the Adidas bosses was sitting there and saying, you guys are doing amazing work. And we would love to support you where we can. So just go write us a proposal on what you want, write us your objectives, short-term goals, long-term goals. We'll see how we can go from here. We really want to support you. And that's how Adidas came on board. And this is where Tirop Angels, because of that moment where us as women, we came together for one purpose and decided that we wanted to make sure that Agnes's name was just going to go in vain and that no other woman is going to lose their lives through GBV. Unfortunately, we still lose athletes, and it's hard. It's hard to think that Agnes died, and we still have more women in running who are dying. Us as women, or African women, we've been trained from a very young age that the man is above you. So whenever you want to rise, there is always that threat to a boy child, and that's where a lot of violence happens. And that happens in athletics a lot because we have a lot of women who are being sexually abused, financially abused, but then they still submit because that's what the culture says, be a good woman. You submit to the men. And then also when it comes to finances, men are the breadwinners in our families. So as much as you're bringing in the money, or as much as you're actually the breadwinner in your relationship, you give all your money to the husband so he can plan and just decide what he wants to do for the sake of the family. And that's where we see a lot of financial abuse when it comes to women in running, and a lot of greed goes into that. Yeah, so the Beijing Declaration was a beautiful thing. It was here to support women, especially on issues relating to human rights, violence, economy, and all that. But just like anything else, just like, let's say, a constitution, if it's not adopted and implemented, it would never do the work that it was supposed to do. So I believe for us, the Africans, it came as a way of saving women and liberating women. But then it has not been implemented. Because if it was implemented, women would not be going through what we are going through, because women would be protected, and that's a human right. Women would not be going through violence, but we are still going through the same thing. Our only hope is that in 30 years from now, we would have eradicated gender-based violence. It would be something of the past. And I'm really grateful to all the partners that have come on board, which makes me feel that there's progress this time around, and that people are tired of women being killed and abused. Like the UN Women and the partners who have come on board, especially this year during the 16 days of activism, I believe their support, and also the local government and national government, is going to get us to where we want to be in 20, 15, 30 years, where we wouldn't be talking about gender-based violence anymore. So I would be really pleased if in a few years to come, we will be just talking about where the successes of women can even go further, instead of women, what can we do to end violence against women? We cannot do this only as women and want change and want abuse to stop when men have not said no to it. So that's my call for men, anywhere they are, to join this fight against gender-based violence. Otherwise, also, we are still going to preach the same message 30 years to come if men are not going to join us, because the perpetrators of these violent acts towards women are 90% men, except for FGM, which is perpetrated by women. Other than that, it's all men. So we are really, really, really pleading with men to join us that way. For any survivor or anyone going through gender-based violence at the moment, I would say speak up. Just speak up, let people know you are going through gender-based violence, because somebody will listen to you. Don't be ashamed. Nobody is going to blame you for walking away from an abusive relationship, because the longer you stay in an abusive relationship, it's not going to change. It only gets worse. So for anyone who is going through it, gather the courage, speak to someone, and walk away from an abusive relationship. And for those who have survived, I would want to say that from me, I'm very proud of you for having the strength to walk away. From a lot of survivors, I've heard that it's very difficult to walk away, because the abuse did not just happen overnight and it gets to a physical abuse. It starts from small things like manipulation, isolation, intimidation, before an emotional damage. So when you're damaged emotionally, you can't even reason. You can't even make wise decisions for yourself. So by the time it gets to physical abuse, it has advanced. And so if you are able to walk away after that one violent situation, or from that utterances that somebody tells you, I will slap you, or I will hit you one day, or you are stupid, like, let's say, your mother, that's enough already for you to think about whether this person is actually the right person to be with, because it never gets better than that. It gets worse when somebody starts abusing you. For anyone else who is going to be in contact with a victim of gender-based violence, I would say that let us show kindness and let us support victims of gender-based violence, because only words or even a hug can make somebody change their minds and walk away from an abusive relationship. Yeah.